Good evening, dear friend. As the world outside hushes and the stars begin their ancient watch, let us gently close our eyes and drift back in time together. Tonight, our journey takes us to the year 1940, a time of great change and quiet courage, where we'll explore how everyday people faced illness and sought comfort and healing. We'll uncover the gentle remedies, the dedicated healers, and the resilient spirit that defined Karen an era on the cusp of medical marvels. So let your mind settle and wander with us. When a common cold or a winter flu arrived uninvited in a 1940s household, it was often the mother or grandmother who became the chief caregiver, armed with experience and loving hands. The sick room would be kept quiet and often dimly lit, with curtains drawn to encourage rest. Perhaps the gentle hiss of a vaporizer adding moist warmth to the air. A comforting bowl of chicken soup, rich with nourishment and tradition, was a universal remedy, believed to soothe the body and lift the spirits of the unwell. Herbal teas, brewed from chamomile for calm or peppermint for digestion, were sipped slowly, their fragrant steam carrying whispers of age-old botanical wisdom passed down through generations. For chesty coughs and congestion, a mustard plaster might be carefully prepared and applied, its pungent warmth intended to draw out the sickness and ease troubled breathing. Poultices made from bread and milk, or onions and sugar, were other common home treatments, their recipes varying from family to family, each a small act of loving care. Bed rest was paramount, a strict instruction to allow the body to marshal its defenses, often in a freshly made bed with clean linen smelling faintly of sunshine or lavender. To pass the long hours of recuperation, a family member might read aloud from a favorite book, or simply sit quietly by, offering silent companionship and reassurance. Simple, nourishing foods like soft-boiled eggs, toast, and stewed fruits were encouraged to rebuild strength without taxing a weakened system, each spoonful a step towards recovery. The gentle clinking of a spoon against a teacup, or the rustle of a newspaper in another room, were the familiar, soothing sounds of a household tending to its own. Neighbors often showed their support in tangible ways, perhaps leaving a pot of broth on the doorstep or offering to run errands, a quiet testament to community bonds. Anxiety for the sick loved one was a constant companion for the family, yet it was met with a quiet determination to provide comfort and hope for a swift return to health. When home remedies weren't enough, the family doctor would be called, a respected figure who often knew several generations of the same family intimately and their medical histories. The doctor's arrival, often in his car but sometimes still by bicycle in rural areas, brought a sense of relief and authority, his familiar black bag holding tools and solace. Inside that bag were instruments like a stethoscope to listen to the heart and lungs, a thermometer to gauge fever, and perhaps a wooden tongue depressor for examining throats. His examination would be thorough yet gentle, his questions kind, as he sought to understand the nature of the ailment troubling his patient, young or old. The doctor's reassuring words and calm demeanor were often as healing as any medicine he might prescribe, offering hope in times of worry and physical distress. Prescriptions were frequently for compounded medicines, mixtures specially prepared by the local pharmacist according to the doctor's specific instructions for the patient. The pharmacist, another trusted community member, would meticulously measure and combine ingredients, their shop smelling of curious herbs, chemicals, and clean powders. Medicines like aspirin were available for pain and fever, but the powerful antibiotics we know today were mostly yet to come, so treatment focused on support and symptom relief. The doctor might advise on diet, on the importance of fresh air once recovery began, and on simple hygiene practices to prevent the spread of illness within the home. The trust placed in the family doctor was immense, his judgment and experience were highly valued, his visits a significant event in the household during times of sickness. Payment for the doctor's visit or prescribed medicines was carefully budgeted for, sometimes paid in installments or even occasionally with goods or services in rural communities. Visiting the doctor's surgery or office meant sitting in a waiting room often furnished with sturdy wooden chairs, leafing through magazines until one's name was called. For more serious conditions, such as severe infections, appendicitis, or injuries from accidents, a hospital stay might become necessary, a prospect met with both hope and trepidation. Hospitals in 1940 were often large, somewhat imposing structures, their corridors echoing with the purposeful footsteps of staff and the muted sounds of healing and crisis. Patients were typically cared for in wards, long rooms with multiple beds neatly arranged in rows, separated by curtains for a measure of privacy during examinations or rest. Nurses, in their crisp, starched uniforms and caps, were the backbone of hospital care, providing skilled medical attention, comfort, and a steady, compassionate presence day and night. They meticulously monitored patients, administered medications, changed dressings, and offered words of encouragement, their dedication a beacon in the often sterile environment. Surgical procedures had advanced significantly, but operations still carried substantial risks, with anesthesia often administered using ether or chloroform, requiring careful monitoring. Recovery from surgery or serious illness in a hospital could be a lengthy process, punctuated by strict visiting hours when family could bring flowers, news, and much-needed cheer. The scent of antiseptics like carbolic acid or Lysol was pervasive in hospitals, a constant reminder of the ongoing battle against infection in a pre-penicillin era for most. X-rays were an increasingly valuable diagnostic tool, allowing doctors to see inside the body without surgery, helping to identify fractures, lung conditions, or other internal issues. Blood transfusions were becoming safer and more common, a life-saving intervention for surgical patients or those who had suffered significant blood loss from injury. Isolation wards or sanatoria were designated for patients with highly contagious diseases like tuberculosis or diphtheria, aiming to prevent wider outbreaks in the community. The fear of catching something in a hospital was a real concern for many, highlighting the ongoing challenges of infection control before widespread antibiotic use. Public health initiatives were gaining momentum in 1940, with a growing understanding of how diseases spread and the importance of preventative measures for community well-being. Vaccination programs, though not as extensive as today, offered protection against dreaded diseases like smallpox and diphtheria, particularly for vulnerable children. School nurses played a vital role, conducting health checks on children, looking for signs of illness, poor nutrition, or vision and hearing problems that might hinder learning. Public campaigns emphasized the importance of personal hygiene, such as regular hand-washing with soap and water, and maintaining clean living environments to deter germs. Efforts to ensure safe drinking water and proper sewage disposal were crucial in preventing waterborne diseases like typhoid fever, especially in more densely populated urban areas. Tuberculosis, once a widespread scourge, was being tackled through public awareness, improved sanitation, and the establishment of sanatoria for treatment and isolation of patients. The importance of good nutrition was increasingly recognized, with advice given on balanced diets, and supplements like cod liver oil commonly given to children for vitamins and D. This growing knowledge about vitamins and their role in preventing deficiency diseases like rickets or scurvy was slowly improving the general health of the population. Memories of the devastating 1918 influenza pandemic still lingered, underscoring the importance of public health vigilance and research into infectious diseases. Community cleanup drives and educational pamphlets distributed by health authorities aimed to empower citizens to take active roles in safeguarding their own and their neighbors' health. Local councils and health boards worked to implement sanitation standards and inspect food premises, contributing to a safer environment for everyone. Amidst the challenges, the 1940s were also a time of burgeoning medical science, with new discoveries offering glimmers of hope for treating previously intractable illnesses. Sulfa drugs, or sulfonamides, were a significant breakthrough, representing one of the first classes of effective antibacterial medications capable of treating infections like pneumonia. The discovery of penicillin by Alexander Fleming had occurred earlier, but its mass production and widespread civilian use were still on the horizon, though its potential was recognized. Research into vaccines for other diseases, like polio and measles, was underway, fueled by a desire to conquer these debilitating and often fatal childhood illnesses. Scientists were delving deeper into the workings of the human body, understanding more about hormones, metabolism, and the complex mechanisms of disease. This era saw an increasing professionalization of medicine and nursing, with standardized training and a greater emphasis on evidence-based practices, slowly transforming patient care. There was a palpable sense of optimism that science and medicine were progressing, holding the promise of a future with less suffering and longer, healthier lives for all. For those facing illness, this undercurrent of progress, however slow, offered a thread of hope alongside the traditional comforts and care they received from loved ones. The resilience of people in 1940, their ability to cope with adversity using the knowledge and resources available, was a quiet testament to the human spirit's strength. Doctors and nurses worked with dedication, often with limited tools compared to modern standards, yet their commitment to easing pain and saving lives was profound. The careful observation of symptoms, combined with experience and intuition, remained a crucial part of diagnosis in an age before advanced imaging and laboratory tests were routine. Families drew strength from their faith, their community, and their own traditions of care, creating a supportive network around those who were unwell. The quiet heroism of everyday people tending to the sick, often in challenging circumstances, painted a picture of compassion and enduring human connection. Children learned early about the fragility of health and the importance of caring for others, lessons absorbed through the rhythms of family life and community experience. The development of local clinics and health centers began to make medical advice and basic treatments more accessible to a wider range of the population. Understanding of mental health was still in its early stages, with conditions often misunderstood, but a growing awareness was slowly beginning to emerge in medical circles. The focus remained largely on physical ailments, but the interconnectedness of mind and body was a concept gently starting to gain some recognition. Each recovery was a small victory, celebrated with gratitude, reinforcing the value of care, whether it came from a doctor's prescription or a soothing homemade broth. The sounds of children playing outside again after a bout of sickness were a joyful signal of life returning to its normal, cherished rhythm. Even in the shadow of wartime uncertainties that marked 1940 for many, the daily acts of healing and care continued, a fundamental human endeavor. The knowledge that medical science was advancing, however incrementally, provided a backdrop of hope against the more immediate realities of illness and treatment. The stories of this time remind us of the importance of compassion, the strength found in community, and the timeless human quest for health and well-being. And so, as we reflect on the gentle care and quiet resilience of 1940, may the peace of that bygone era settle over you, bringing with it a sense of calm. The efforts to heal, the comfort offered, and the hope for recovery were threads woven deeply into the fabric of daily life, much as they are today in different ways. Let these echoes of the past soothe your mind as you drift into a deep and restorative sleep, carrying with you the quiet strength of human tenderness. Good night, good evening, and welcome to a quiet space where the day's clamor fades, and our thoughts can drift like soft clouds across a twilight sky preparing for gentle dreams. Tonight, we journey to an imagined 1940, a world on the cusp of great change, where a group of thinkers dared to dream of machines that could reshape landscapes and possibilities. We'll explore a fictional tale of how, in this alternate year, the concept of powerful, tracked vehicles, which they would come to call tanks, first sparked into existence through quiet ingenuity. In this particular vision of 1940, the world felt a growing need for something more robust than wheeled vehicles, something that could navigate treacherous terrain with unwavering resolve. Roads were often poor, and existing machines struggled in mud or across broken ground, limiting movement and the transport of essential goods or protective measures in difficult times. A small collective of engineers and dreamers, led by a quiet inventor named Alistair Finch, often met in a secluded workshop, pondering solutions to this very challenge. They spoke of creating a landship, a vehicle that could carry its own protection and move with the steadfastness of a tortoise, yet possess the strength of a tempered steel shield. Their early drawings were filled with fantastical shapes, some inspired by ancient Roman testudos, others by the articulated bodies of insects, seeking inspiration from every corner of knowledge. The greatest hurdle was locomotion, how to make a heavy machine grip uncertain earth, to climb slopes, and to cross ditches without faltering or becoming hopelessly mired. Another significant challenge was the power source, requiring an engine compact enough yet mighty enough to propel such a weighty contrivance across unforgiving landscapes. Alistair, a man of gentle demeanor but fierce intellect, often spent nights poring over schematics of agricultural tractors and industrial crawlers, seeking a spark of an idea. He observed how linked metal plates on Caterpillar tractors distributed weight, allowing them to work on soft soil, and wondered if this principle could be adapted for greater burdens. His lead engineer, a pragmatic woman named Eleanor Vance, meticulously calculated stress tolerances and material strengths, translating Alistair's visions into feasible engineering problems. They imagined a vehicle encased in thick steel plating, not merely for carrying loads, but to shield its occupants and vital mechanisms from unforeseen external forces or debris. The team worked in utmost secrecy, their workshop hidden away behind a disused textile mill on the outskirts of a sleepy industrial town, far from prying eyes. Inside, the air hummed with quiet concentration, the scent of oil and hot metal mingling with the aroma of brewing tea, a small comfort during long hours of meticulous work. They experimented with various track designs, some with wide, flat plates, others with intricate interlocking segments, each tested on miniature models in a sandpit behind the mill. One evening, while observing a child's clockwork toy with a clever gear system, Alistair had a breakthrough regarding the transmission of power to the tracks with more efficiency. Eleanor then devised a novel suspension system, using robust springs and boogie wheels, which promised to cushion the ride and keep the tracks firmly in contact with the ground. The concept of a rotating turret, allowing an observational cupola or a specialized tool to be aimed without turning the entire vehicle, began to take shape on their blueprints. This turret, they envisioned, could house mapping equipment or powerful lights, making the vehicle versatile for exploration or survey work in challenging, uncharted areas. They decided to build their first full-scale prototype using repurposed boilerplates for armor, a testament to their resourcefulness and the limited budget they operated under. The engine was a modified diesel unit salvaged from a decommissioned coastal barge, its low rumble a promising heartbeat for their creation when they finally installed it. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, as the machine slowly took form, each welded seam and bolted plate a step closer to realizing their ambitious dream. The workshop became their world. Meals were often eaten standing beside blueprints, and sleep was snatched on makeshift cots when exhaustion finally overcame them. Young Thomas, the apprentice, proved invaluable with his keen eyesight and steady hands, meticulously crafting smaller components and keeping the workshop meticulously organized for efficiency. Eleanor often spoke of the machine as their iron will, a name reflecting the determination required to bring such a complex idea into tangible, moving reality. Alistair preferred to call it perseverance, a quiet nod to the countless setbacks they had overcome with patience and renewed effort each time a problem arose. Finally, the day arrived when their first prototype, a hulking, angular beast painted in a dull, unassuming gray, stood complete within the confines of the workshop. It was far from elegant, its form dictated by function and the materials available, yet to its creators, it possessed a rugged, powerful beauty, a symbol of their collective effort. They decided its first test would be under the cover of darkness, in the sprawling, uneven fields that stretched beyond the old mill, to maintain their cherished secrecy. As the moon cast long shadows, they carefully maneuvered the machine out of the workshop, its metal tracks clanking softly on the cobblestones before meeting the soft earth. Alistair took the controls, his heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and trepidation, while Eleanor and Thomas watched with bated breath from a safe distance. With a deep growl, the engine came to life, and slowly, ponderously, the great machine began to move, its tracks churning the soil, leaving deep imprints in its wake. It navigated a shallow ditch with surprising ease, climbed a grassy knoll without hesitation, and crossed a patch of muddy ground that would have trapped any wheeled vehicle. The sight of their creation moving so capably across the challenging terrain filled the small team with an immense sense of accomplishment, a quiet triumph under the stars. Eleanor jotted down notes furiously by the light of a lantern, observing the suspension's performance and the engine's response to the varying loads and inclines. Thomas, usually reserved, let out a small cheer as the machine successfully negotiated a particularly difficult section of broken ground, his face alight with pride. They spent several hours that night testing its capabilities, pushing it gently, learning its quirks, its strengths, and the areas that would need further refinement and careful adjustment. The steering was initially cumbersome, requiring considerable effort, and the engine, while powerful, occasionally sputtered under extreme strain, indicating a need for better cooling. But the core concept was proven. A heavily protected, tracked vehicle could indeed conquer terrain previously deemed impassable, opening up a world of new possibilities. Over the following weeks, they worked to refine the design, improving the track tensioning system, reinforcing the armor in key areas, and enhancing the engine's ventilation. They also began to consider a more official, less descriptive name for their invention, something that was short, memorable, and perhaps a little enigmatic to preserve its nature. One day, during a discussion about the water tanks used to test the buoyancy of ship hulls, someone jokingly referred to their machine as a land water tank due to its boxy shape. The term tank stuck, initially as an internal code name to maintain secrecy, but it soon became the accepted term for this new class of powerful, all-terrain vehicle. Alistair envisioned these tanks not just for overcoming obstacles, but as mobile platforms for scientific equipment in remote regions, or as rescue vehicles in disaster zones. Eleanor saw their potential for construction projects in difficult environments, laying pipelines or cables where other machines could not venture, aiding infrastructure development. Thomas dreamed of driving one himself on grand expeditions, exploring uncharted territories, the reliable machine a steadfast companion against the known challenges ahead. Their workshop, once a place of secret toil, now buzzed with a new energy, the energy of proven success and the exciting prospect of future developments and applications. They began to draw up plans for different versions: a lighter, faster model for reconnaissance, and a heavier, more powerful one for carrying substantial loads or equipment. The news of their invention, though still closely guarded, began to subtly ripple outwards, sparking curiosity and cautious interest in certain discerning circles. Other engineers in distant lands, working on similar problems, might have heard faint whispers, unaware of the quiet breakthroughs happening in that secluded mill workshop. The team knew their journey was far from over. This first prototype was merely the beginning, a foundational step on a long road of innovation and improvement. They understood that perfecting the design would require many more months, perhaps even years, of dedicated effort, rigorous testing, and iterative enhancements. Yet, as they stood beside their creation, its engine now silent but its presence profoundly felt, they shared a look of quiet understanding and mutual respect for their journey. They had faced skepticism, shortages of materials, and the sheer difficulty of bringing such a novel concept to life, yet their shared vision had prevailed through perseverance. The gentle hum of the cooling engine seemed to sing a lullaby of accomplishment, a testament to human ingenuity and the power of a dedicated team working towards a common goal. Alistair Finch, Eleanor Vance, and young Thomas had, in their own quiet way, in this imagined 1940, laid the groundwork for machines that would indeed change their world. Their story was not one of grand pronouncements or public acclaim, but of quiet dedication in a humble workshop, where dreams were forged into steel and motion. As the first hints of dawn began to touch the sky, casting a soft glow over the fields, the team carefully guided their tank back into the sanctuary of the mill. They covered it with tarpaulins, its powerful form once again hidden, but the knowledge of its existence, and its successful first trial, warmed them more than the morning tea. They knew that the path ahead involved convincing others of its utility, securing resources for further development, and navigating the complexities of introducing such a radical innovation. But for now, and the quiet solitude of their workshop, they allowed themselves a moment of profound satisfaction, a shared sense of having achieved something truly remarkable. The rhythmic clanking of the tracks, the deep thrum of the engine, these were the sounds of a new era dawning, conceived in whispers and built by determined hands. This fictional genesis of the tank, born from a need for resilience and movement, reminds us that great changes often begin with a simple idea and unwavering belief. It speaks to the spirit of inventors everywhere, who see not just what is, but what could be, and dedicate themselves to bridging that gap with creativity and hard work. The story of Alistair, Eleanor, and Thomas is a tribute to the quiet innovators, those whose names might not always fill history books, but whose contributions shape our world. Their imagined workshop, filled with sketches, tools, and the scent of determination, becomes a symbol of human potential and the relentless pursuit of progress. In this alternate 1940, the first tank was not a weapon of war, but a tool of possibility, designed to conquer terrain, not people, a testament to a different kind of ambition. It was a machine born from a desire to explore, to build, and to overcome the natural obstacles that lay in the path of human endeavor and peaceful expansion. The team's focus was on creating something that could aid in understanding the world, reaching remote places, and assisting communities in challenging environments. Their dream was of landships that could carry scientific instruments to volcanic rims, or deliver aid to snowbound villages, extending the reach of help and knowledge. The robust armor was conceived to protect against harsh weather, falling rocks, or the dangers of unstable ground, ensuring the safety of its pioneering occupants. The rotating cupola was envisioned for panoramic observation, for cartographers mapping new territories, or for geologists studying rock formations from a stable platform. They imagined their machines forging paths for new settlements, carrying the tools and supplies needed to build communities in previously inaccessible wilderness. The powerful tracks, their most significant innovation, were seen as a way to tread lightly yet firmly, minimizing damage to delicate ecosystems while ensuring safe passage. This gentle vision of the tank's birth highlights the potential for technology to be a force for connection and understanding, rather than conflict and division. It reminds us that the purpose of an invention is often shaped by the intentions of its creators and the context into which it is introduced to the world. In Alistair's workshop, the guiding principle was always how their creation could serve humanity in constructive and peaceful ways, fostering growth and exploration. Eleanor's precise calculations were aimed at ensuring reliability and safety, so that those who used their machines could do so with confidence in their expeditions. Thomas's youthful enthusiasm represented the next generation, eager to use these new tools to discover more about the planet and its myriad wonders. Their collaborative spirit, blending Alistair's visionary thinking, Eleanor's practical engineering, and Thomas's dedicated craftsmanship, was the true engine of their success. They demonstrated that even the most complex challenges could be overcome when diverse talents unite with a shared purpose and a commitment to diligent effort. The story of their fictional invention serves as a quiet reminder of the power of dreams, the importance of perseverance, and the profound impact of human ingenuity. As we close our eyes tonight, perhaps we can imagine that secluded workshop, the gentle hum of creativity, and the quiet satisfaction of a dream made real. May your own dreams be filled with peaceful journeys and the quiet joy of discovery, as you drift into a restful and restorative sleep, filled with gentle thoughts. The world of 1940, and this telling, was a place where such quiet marvels could unfold, powered by hope and the steady rhythm of innovation, one careful step at a time. And so, the legend of their perseverance, their iron will, their first gentle tank, fades into the soft embrace of the night, a story of quiet creation. Good evening, dear friend. As the shadows lengthen and the world outside grows quiet, let us journey together to a place woven from imagination, a peaceful, imagined village. Tonight, we shall gently observe the lives of its inhabitants, the rhythm of their days, their simple crafts, and the quiet joys that filled their world, a tapestry of imagined existence. Let us settle in and allow our minds to drift to the fictional hamlet of Oakhaven, nestled beside a whispering river and ancient, protective woods, where our story unfolds for your calm repose. Oakhaven presented itself as a charming cluster of sturdy timber-framed cottages, their roofs meticulously layered with thick golden-brown thatch that promised warmth and dryness, while the whitewashed or timbered walls were frequently adorned with fragrant climbing roses or the deep green of trailing ivy, lending the entire settlement a timeless, burdened appeal that spoke of generations of careful habitation and simple, peaceful living. A clear meandering stream, affectionately named the Silver Stream by the villagers, flowed with a gentle grace along Oakhaven's eastern edge, its cool sparkling waters serving not only for drinking and daily washing but also as the vital force powering the ancient moss-covered water wheel of the old grist mill. Situated at the village's southern boundary, a constant source of life and industry, the air in Oakhaven always carried a comforting, unique blend of wood smoke from the numerous hearths, the sweet and yeasty scent of baking bread from Alara's oven, and the distant earthy aroma of the surrounding cultivated fields and the deep primeval forest that bordered their lands, a perfume of daily life. Life here in this secluded haven moved with the deliberate and hurried pace of the seasons, each distinct period bringing its own specific tasks, challenges, and gentle celebrations of predictable and reassuring cycle that had sustained the villagers and their ancestors for many peaceful generations. As the very first pale, ethereal light of dawn delicately touched the eastern horizon, old Farmer Giles was already awake and about his duties, his weathered, calloused hands checking the familiar wooden latch of his sturdy barn door with the practiced care born of countless repetitions. He would then proceed to greet his small herd of dairy cows, their warm breath misting visibly in the cool, crisp morning air, their gentle, resonant lowing, a familiar and comforting sound that truly signaled the beginning of his long dedicated day of toil upon the land. Meanwhile, in her own cozy cottage, Alara, the village baker, her flour-dusted apron already neatly tied around her waist, would be skillfully coaxing the dying embers in her large traditional stone oven back to a vibrant glowing life, meticulously preparing for the day's essential baking. The deeply comforting aroma of active yeast mingling with the scent of slowly warming dough would soon begin to drift invitingly from her bakery's open window, carrying on the morning breeze a fragrant promise of crusty fresh loaves and perhaps some sweet, sticky buns for the awakening villagers, a signal that the day's sustenance was well underway. Thomas, the village blacksmith, a man renowned for his strong, capable arms and a notably quiet, thoughtful demeanor, would be stirring his forge into action, the great leather bellows sighing rhythmically as the pile of coals began to glow with an intense, fiery heart, ready for the day's metalwork. His first important task of the morning was often the sharpening of plowshares for the local farmers preparing for field work, or perhaps mending broken tools essential for daily life. The rhythmic resounding clang of his heavy hammer on the solid anvil providing a steady, industrious beat in the village's emerging morning symphony. In her sunlit cottage, filled with the vibrant colors of various looms and countless skeins of colorful threads, Lyra the weaver would be carefully selecting her fine yarns for the day, her imaginative mind already envisioning the intricate patterns and textures she would meticulously bring to life on her hand-crafted loom. Her fingers, astonishingly nimble and quick from years of practice, would soon dance gracefully across the taut warp and weft threads of her loom, creating beautiful and durable fabrics that were renowned throughout the nearby settlements for their exceptional quality, vibrant colors, and enduring strength. Old Maeve, the respected village herbalist, her small cottage garden a fragrant living tapestry of diverse medicinal plants and aromatic herbs, would be out with her woven willow basket, diligently collecting dew-kissed leaves, potent flowers, and specific roots for her various remedies and healing preparations. She possessed an encyclopedic knowledge of the secret properties of every plant that grew in the region, understanding precisely which ones could effectively soothe a troublesome fever, help mend a painful wound, or gently bring about peaceful, restorative sleep. Her ancient wisdom a vital resource for Oakhaven's continued health and well-being. By mid-morning, the central grassy green of Oakhaven would transform into a lively hub of gentle, purposeful activity, with the joyful, unrestrained laughter of children echoing clearly as they engaged in spirited chasing games around the ancient gnarled oak tree that dominated the space. Some of the older, more studious children would gather attentively under the patient tutelage of Master Elmsworth, the village's retired scholar, who kindly taught them basic letters and essential numbers using shared slates and pieces of chalk in the fresh open air beside the babbling stream. The small bustling marketplace, convened reliably twice a week upon the central village green, would become a vibrant hub where villagers cheerfully exchanged essential goods, crisp fresh vegetables harvested from their meticulously tended garden plots, clutches of brown and white eggs, perhaps a newly crafted wooden bowl smoothed to the touch, or a carefully mended earthenware pot, demonstrating their resourcefulness and mutual support. Alara's bakery stall, laden with its warm, fragrant wares, would invariably be a popular and busy spot, the crusty bread and delicious honey cakes disappearing quickly into the eager hands of young and old alike, its sweet scent mingling pleasantly with that of fresh herbs from Maeve's nearby table. Farmers from the scattered outlying homesteads surrounding Oakhaven would often bring in their agricultural surplus to trade, perhaps a few plump chickens, a basket of ripe apples, or even a small squealing piglet, their friendly bartering voices creating a low agreeable hum in the otherwise quiet and orderly square. Thomas the blacksmith could frequently be seen expertly fitting new glowing iron rims onto sturdy wagon wheels, the sharp distinct scent of hot metal and scorched wood permeating the air, Around his outdoor workspace, his focused, powerful work invariably drawing a small crowd of quiet, respectful observers. Lyra, the weaver, might choose to display a newly finished, intricately patterned shawl or a thick, warm blanket at the market, its complex designs and rich colors immediately catching the eye of passersby, a beautiful testament to her exceptional skill and the vibrant, natural dyes she so carefully prepared from local plants. Women from various households would often gather sociably at the village well, not merely to draw buckets of fresh cool water for their homes but also to share the latest local news, exchange helpful advice, and tell amusing stories, their combined conversations a gentle melodic counterpoint to the diverse sounds of work and play. Young apprentices diligently learning their chosen trades from the village masters would be kept constantly busy fetching tools, carefully tending to fires, sweeping workshops, or running important errands throughout Oakhaven, their youthful energy and eagerness contributing significantly to the village's overall productive and harmonious rhythm. The miller, a jovial man named Goodman Thorne, his work clothes perpetually dusted with a fine, pale layer of flour, would be found conscientiously supervising the crucial grinding of harvested grain, the great mossy water wheel of his mill turning with a steady, rhythmic splash and a comforting, deep creak. His ancient mill was an absolutely vital cog in Oakhaven's intricate system of sustenance, tirelessly transforming the golden harvested wheat and barley into the fine, nutritious flour that Ilar the baker would then magically turn into the daily bread that nourished every single villager. Occasionally a traveling peddler, a rare and welcome sight, would arrive in Oakhaven, his sturdy, brightly painted cart laden with fascinating goods from distant and seen towns. Colorful ribbons, small shiny trinkets, exotic spices, or most importantly news and stories from the wider world far beyond Oakhaven's familiar protective borders. His much-anticipated arrival was always considered a small but significant event, bringing with it a tantalizing touch of the exotic and a valuable chance for the villagers to hear engaging tales of faraway places and different customs, thereby briefly broadening the horizons of the community for a short, stimulating while. Inside their cozy, well-kept homes, many other villagers engaged in quieter, more personal crafts and tasks. Some might be found whittling small, charming animal figures from scraps of wood. Others diligently mending clothes with careful, almost invisible stitches, or slowly preparing wholesome ingredients for the approaching evening meal. The constant making and meticulous mending of essential tools, everyday clothing, and various household items was a continuous, shared responsibility among the villagers, ensuring that very little ever went to waste in their remarkably resourceful, self-sufficient, and tightly knit community. As the bright sun climbed higher in the sky, casting shorter, sharper shadows across the village green, the general pace of work might slow just a little, allowing for a brief welcome pause, often taken for a simple yet satisfying midday meal of freshly baked bread, savory local cheese, and perhaps some sweet juicy fruit. Farmer Giles, a man deeply connected to the earth, would be out in his expansive fields diligently tending to his growing crops, his movements methodical, patient, and unhurried, a lifetime of accumulated agricultural experience guiding his weathered hands in the rich, dark furrows of his land. He possessed an innate understanding of the subtle language of the soil, the specific needs of the different plants he cultivated, and the almost imperceptible signs of changing weather patterns, his profound connection to the land around him being both deep and entirely unwavering. Lyra the weaver, having returned to her sun-drenched workshop, would work with a quiet, focused intensity, the wooden shuttle flying rapidly back and forth between the threads of her loom, the intricate, colorful pattern emerging gradually line by careful line, a slow, deliberate creation of both functional beauty and lasting utility. She often drew her artistic inspiration directly from the natural world surrounding Oakhaven, the vibrant, shifting colors of a dramatic sunset, the gentle, sinuous curve of the nearby silver stream, the complex, delicate veins of a fallen autumn leaf, skillfully weaving these observed elements into her unique and sought-after textile designs. Thomas the blacksmith, despite the considerable heat emanating from his constantly roaring forge, would steadfastly continue his demanding work, perhaps expertly crafting sturdy iron hinges for a newly built door or carefully repairing a broken gate latch for an appreciative neighbor, his skills always in demand. His remarkable skill was not just in the application of brute strength needed to shape metal but also in the incredible precision he employed expertly shaping the glowing malleable hot metal. With controlled accurate blows of his hammer transforming raw unyielding iron into objects of both practical function and simple rustic artistry. Lev the herbalist might typically spend her quiet afternoons carefully drying and meticulously sorting her recently collected medicinal plants, hanging fragrant bunches of herbs from the aged wooden rafters of her cozy cottage, their diverse potent scents mingling pleasantly in the warm still air. She would also dedicate time to preparing her various healing salves, concentrated tinctures, and soothing herbal teas. Her vast ancient knowledge meticulously passed down through many generations of her family, making her a gentle, respected guardian of Oakhaven's collective health, comfort, and overall well-being. The village children, their formal lessons with Master Elmsworth now finished for the day, might often be found enthusiastically helping with various household chores such as gathering fallen firewood from the nearby wood's edge or diligently tending to small individual vegetable patches of their very own. They learned essential practical skills and a sense of responsibility from a very young age, clearly understanding their important role within their family unit and the wider village community, contributing meaningfully in their own small but significant ways to the collective good. Some of the older men of Oakhaven, seeking respite from the afternoon sun, might gather sociably under the broad cooling shade of the large ancient oak tree that stood sentinel on the village green, sharing well-worn stories or playing quiet strategic games of drafts on a roughly carved wooden board. Their unhurried conversations were often filled with fond reminiscences of past seasons, tales of exceptionally good harvests, or humorous, well-loved village anecdotes, their shared dialogue forming a living repository of Oakhaven's collective memory, traditions, and rich shared experiences. Over many years, groups of women might choose to sit together in a sunny, sheltered spot, perhaps near their cottage doorways, their hands kept constantly busy with the rhythmic clicking of knitting needles or the delicate, precise movements of embroidery, their quiet companionable chatter a soothing ambient sound that strengthened the vital bonds of friendship and community. They readily shared intricate patterns for their crafts, offered helpful advice on various domestic matters, and provided unwavering mutual support. Their communal crafting sessions serving as a source of both practical, useful items for their families and essential social connection, subtly weaving the very fabric of their close-knit society. In the small but well-equipped village woodshop, old Silas, the highly skilled carpenter, would be found carefully shaping pieces of seasoned wood. His hands gnarled and stiff from years of labor, but still surprisingly deft and precise, expertly crafting sturdy furniture or repairing essential wooden structures around Oakhaven. The rich, clean scent of freshly cut timber, primarily oak, ash, and pine sourced from the local managed woodlands, perpetually filled his busy workshop, a fragrant testament to his lifelong unwavering dedication to the noble craft of transforming raw trees into useful, beautiful, and long-lasting objects for the community. He patiently taught his young, eager apprentice, a lad named Finn, the critical importance of respecting the natural grain of the wood, the proper and safe use of all his specialized tools, and the deep, quiet satisfaction that comes from creating something both lasting and aesthetically pleasing with one's own hands. Finn, always keen and eager to learn every aspect of the carpenter's trade, would watch his master's every move with intense concentration, diligently practicing his own sawing and chiseling cuts on scrap pieces of wood, dreaming of the future day when he too could build with such admirable skill, confidence, and artistry. The clear flowing silver stream provided more than just water for drinking and power for the mill. Adventurous young boys from the village sometimes tried their luck fishing for small, elusive trout along its grassy willow-lined banks, hoping for a tasty fresh addition to their family's evening meal. Their simple fishing lines, typically made of strong plaited twine and baited with wriggling earthworms dug from nearby soil, would be cast into the deeper pools with a mixture of hopeful patience and youthful optimism, their quiet and wavering focus a small mirror of the village's general, industrious yet peaceful calm. Good evening and welcome to this quiet moment where the bustling sounds of the world outside begin to fade, allowing us to gently drift back through the vast corridors of the ages, journeying to a time of new beginnings and truly profound life-altering discoveries made by our distant ancestors. Tonight our imaginative journey takes us to a sun-dappled clearing where we meet a small close-knit band of early people, individuals living in deep harmony and close connection with the earth. Their unfolding story, one of patient discovery and the very dawn of a quietly revolutionary idea that would forever change humanity. We'll softly imagine the fabric of their daily lives, the myriad challenges they faced with resilience, and the slow, wondrous, almost magical way they first began to understand and learn how to cultivate the land, patiently coaxing vibrant life from the fertile soil to grow their own nourishing food. Picture a pristine world, painted with immense, ancient forests, sweeping grassy plains stretching to the horizon, and rivers sparkling like silver ribbons. In this enfolded landscape, these early people moved gracefully with the changing seasons, their entire existence an intimate, responsive dance with the powerful, ever-present rhythms of the natural world around them. Their days were a constant quest for sustenance. The men, often in small silent groups, would track and hunt wild game using keenly sharpened stones and sturdy wooden spears, a pursuit demanding immense skill, unwavering patience, and a profound understanding of animal behaviors and the whispering language of the forest trails. The women and younger members of the group, meanwhile, undertook the vital task of foraging for a diverse array of edible plants, their knowledgeable hands carefully gathering sweet berries from thorny bushes, skillfully digging for nutritious, starchy roots hidden beneath the earth, and collecting fallen nuts and precious seeds scattered abundantly across the rich forest floor. These resourceful people knew their ancestral lands with an astonishing intimacy, aware of every hidden freshwater spring, the location of each bountiful fruiting tree, and every secluded patch where the sweetest, juiciest berries reliably grew. This essential knowledge, carefully passed down through countless generations, often whispered in stories around the warm, flickering evening fires. Their homes provided basic but essential shelter from the elements. Sometimes they utilized natural caves offering sturdy protection from wind and rain, or they constructed temporary, portable structures from readily available branches and durable animal hides, dwellings that could be easily dismantled and abandoned when local food resources inevitably dwindled, prompting a move. For these early humans, life was a continuous, often arduous search for sustenance, a delicate and ever-shifting balance between periods of welcome abundance and challenging times of scarcity. Their senses incredibly keenly attuned to the faintest, most subtle signs of the changing environment, as their very survival depended entirely on this acute awareness. With focused attention, they observed the myriad wild plants growing around them with great intensity, meticulously noting which varieties were safe and nourishing to eat, which leaves or roots offered soothing or healing properties for ailments, and, importantly, which ones produced the tiny, hardy seeds that held the miraculous potential to sprout and grow anew. Occasionally, after consuming sweet fruits or carelessly discarding inedible seeds near their temporary encampments, they might, upon returning to the same area many months later, observe with mild surprise young, tender plants vigorously sprouting in precisely those spots, a silent lesson from the earth itself about its regenerative power and the potential held within each tiny seed. Initially, these were merely small, almost unnoticed occurrences, fleeting observations quickly forgotten in a life predominantly filled with the pressing, immediate demands of finding enough food to sustain the group for that very day, leaving little room for deeper contemplation of such minor natural events that seemed purely coincidental at the time. Yet, over time, these seemingly insignificant little patterns, the undeniable connection between a discarded, forgotten seed and the surprising emergence of a fresh new sprout, slowly but surely began to etch themselves more deeply into the shared, collective memory of the entire group, becoming points of occasional, quiet discussion. The life-giving sun, the essential rain, the dark, mysterious soil. They intuitively understood these fundamental elements as immensely powerful, often unpredictable forces, the ultimate givers of all life they witnessed around them. But the revolutionary idea of actively partnering with these forces to cultivate food was still entirely informed in their minds. Their profound connection to the diverse plant world that sustained them was primarily one of deep-seated respect and immediate necessity, a relationship based on carefully taking only what was generously offered by nature, rather than consciously or intentionally shaping its growth patterns for their own specific long-term benefit or convenience. Imagine one particularly thoughtful woman among them, perhaps we can call her Laura, whose intelligent eyes keenly observed every detail of the world and who often found herself lingering where the wild edible grains grew most thickly, silently pondering their intricate and reliable cycle of growth, ripening, and receding. Laura carefully noticed how tiny seeds, sometimes scattered great distances by the strong winds or inadvertently dropped by feeding birds, would eventually take firm root and then flourish with surprising vigor in certain specific types of receptive soil, especially in the days following the arrival of gentle, life-sustaining seasonal rains. With her observant gaze, Laura clearly saw that the very same kinds of plants growing close to the lush riverbank, where the earth was consistently dark, rich, and moist, invariably grew much taller and ultimately bore significantly more abundant fruit than their counterparts struggling on the drier, stonier, less forgiving ground further away. Driven by a curious, almost inexplicable impulse, she began to meticulously collect not just the immediately edible parts of her favorite plants but also their precious tiny seeds, storing them with great care in simple woven grass baskets or small pliable animal skin pouches. A new and unusual habit. Other members of her close-knit nomadic group inevitably watched her unusual activities, some with a budding curiosity mirroring her own, others perhaps with a touch of gentle, understandable skepticism, as she dedicated precious time to carefully examining these seemingly inert, tiny kernels that held such mysterious potential for future life. Perhaps she would gather the inquisitive children around her, patiently pointing out to them how a single fallen berry accidentally crushed underfoot into the soft earth could remarkably many weeks later sprout into a tiny new bush in that very same spot, a small everyday miracle of nature's persistence. These accumulated observations were like soft, insistent whispers from the landscape, subtle yet persistent hints from nature itself, gently suggesting the profound possibility that perhaps they didn't always have to undertake long, arduous journeys, wandering so far from their shelters simply to find the food they needed to survive. The truly revolutionary idea that they, as humans, could somehow actively influence where their most favored and nutritious plants grew, even if only in a very small and localized way at first, started as a fragile, nascent seed within their collective consciousness. Carefully nurtured by Laura's unwavering focus and persistent curiosity, they had all witnessed the dramatic spectacle of lightning striking ancient, towering trees, instantly causing destructive fires that swept through patches of forest, and then, weeks later, observed fresh, vibrant new green shoots miraculously emerging from the nutrient-rich ashes. A powerful, unforgettable lesson in nature's incredible resilience and constant renewal. This profound, first-hand understanding of destruction inevitably leading to vigorous new growth, though not directly related to the act of deliberate planting, certainly reinforced their growing perception that the earth beneath their feet was a dynamic, ever-changing place of constant cyclical transformation and rebirth, not a static entity. The respected elders of the group, with their invaluable long memories stretching back many seasons, often recalled and shared stories of previous times when certain essential food plants were exceptionally abundant in one particular valley or hillside, only to become inexplicably scarce later, prompting the necessary decision to move to new, more promising grounds. What if Laura and a few like-minded curious individuals within the group began to quietly wonder amongst themselves they could somehow encourage their most treasured and reliable food plants to grow much closer to their more established, relatively safer encampments, reducing the need for perilous, distant foraging expeditions? This emerging concept of cultivation wasn't a brilliant, sudden invention that appeared fully formed. Rather, it was a very slow, almost imperceptible dawning. A gradual and painstaking piecing together of countless small, seemingly unrelated observations made patiently over the course of many changing seasons, under many different skies and weather conditions. The lingering collective memory of those intriguing accidental sproutings of edible plants found near their abandoned old campsites evolved from being just a passing, curious note into something far more significant. It slowly transformed into a persistent, tantalizing question, a genuine possibility that was simply waiting patiently to be actively explored. Spurred by this growing curiosity, they consciously started to pay even closer, more detailed attention than ever before to the complete life cycle of the specific wild plants they most heavily relied upon for sustenance, meticulously observing every stage from the emergence of the first tender green shoot to the final ripening of the fruit or grain. Then, one particularly promising season, near the entrance of their familiar, protective cave shelter, Alara, filled with a quiet determination, decided to try something entirely new and unprecedented for her people. She began meticulously clearing a small, manageable patch of ground from tough weeds and sharp, obstructive stones, carefully making the surface smooth and receptive. With incredibly careful, almost reverent fingers, she then took some of the precious, carefully selected seeds she had diligently saved over the previous months, perhaps from a particularly sweet variety of wild melon or a notably hardy and nutritious type of wild grain, and pressed them gently one by one into the freshly prepared, welcoming earth. The other members of her group gathered around to watch this unusual activity, their faces reflecting a complex mixture of nascent hope and understandable doubt, for this deliberate act of planting was a significant departure from their deeply established ancestral ways of simply gathering whatever sustenance nature freely provided in other wilder locations. Alara thoughtfully chose a specific spot for her experimental garden that received ample direct sunlight throughout most of the day and was conveniently not too far from the life-giving fresh water of the nearby stream. Clearly remembering how similar wild plants always thrived best under such favorable conditions, she had observed almost daily, Alara would make her way to her little experimental patch of earth, observing it with a profound sense of quiet, hopeful anticipation, diligently shooing away any curious, opportunistic birds that might swoop down and attempt to steal the precious, carefully planted seeds before they had a chance to germinate. When the anticipated seasonal rains finally arrived, gently soaking the parched earth of her small garden, a palpable sense of nervous excitement filled Alara and those who watched with her. They all wondered intensely, would her patient efforts actually bear tangible fruit, or would the valuable seeds simply succumb to rot in the damp ground? Then, after what felt like an almost unbearable eternity of patient waiting and watchful anticipation, the first incredibly tiny, vibrant green shoots began to miraculously push their determined way up through the surface of the dark soil, appearing as delicate yet undeniably determined signs of emerging new life from the seeds she planted. A profound and quiet joy mixed with a sense of genuine wonder slowly spread through the entire gathered group as they collectively witnessed these very first cultivated sprouts emerging from the earth. It felt like a small personal miracle, a clear testament to Alara's insightful observation and her unwavering patient effort. Through this initial experiment and subsequent attempts, they quickly learned the important lesson that not all of the planted seeds would successfully sprout, and furthermore, not all of the young plants that did emerge would ultimately survive to maturity, leading inevitably to more pressing questions and even more careful, detailed observations about what specific conditions and techniques work best. Inspired by this initial success, some members of the group tried scattering collected seeds more randomly across patches of ground, attempting to mimic the natural dispersal by wind or animals, while others diligently followed Alara's more methodical approach of careful seed placement in specially prepared soil, allowing them to compare the differing results. They soon noticed a significant improvement if they took the time to thoroughly loosen the compacted soil with sharpened, pointed sticks before carefully planting the seeds. The tender young roots seemed to take hold much more easily and securely, and consequently, the resulting plants grew noticeably stronger and healthier. The arduous task of carrying precious water and stitched animal skins all the way from the flowing stream to their small garden plots, in order to gently moisten the thirsty earth during prolonged dry spells, became another important experimental, laborious but often critically necessary undertaking to ensure the survival of their fledgling crops. Gradually they began to truly understand the crucial concept that different types of plants evidently had distinctly different environmental needs. Some varieties clearly preferred the cooler, shadier spots beneath larger trees, while other types seemed to absolutely crave and thrive in the full unfiltered intensity of the day-long sun's warmth. The constant need for protecting these vulnerable tender young plants from the ever-present threat of hungry wild animals such as graceful deer or quick-footed rabbits that might happily nibble on the fresh green shoots became an entirely new and ongoing challenge requiring constant vigilance and the construction of simple yet effective protective barriers. These first experimental gardens were undoubtedly tiny, often fragile ventures highly susceptible to the whims of weather and wildlife, yet they represented a truly monumental and profound shift in human thinking, a slow transition from passively taking what nature provided to actively consciously nurturing and cultivating life for sustenance. The curious children of the group, too, naturally became involved in these novel gardening activities, their nimble small hands proving perfect for the delicate tasks of pulling out unwanted weeds and placing tiny seeds into the prepared soil, thus learning these vital new agricultural skills alongside their patient elders. Every single successful new sprout that pushed through the earth and each tiny precious fruit that eventually ripened to sweetness in their carefully tended cultivated patch was a genuine cause for quiet, heartfelt celebration within the community and served as a powerful reinforcement of their rapidly growing hard-won agricultural knowledge. A crucial development occurred when they instinctively started to select and save seeds specifically from the strongest, healthiest, and most productive individual plants in their gardens, thereby intuitively understanding and practicing the fundamental basics of choosing for desirable traits, a very slow, unconscious form of early selective breeding that would gradually improve their crops. The inevitable failures they experienced in their gardening attempts were often just as instructive, if not more so, than their successes, teaching them valuable hard-learned lessons about the detrimental effects of poor and fertile soil, the critical balance of providing too much or too little water, and the various destructive pests that could swiftly ruin an entire fledgling crop. This ongoing, cyclical process of patient trial and frequent error, always guided by their incredibly keen powers of observation and a courageous willingness to continually experiment with new methods and ideas, formed the very bedrock, the essential foundation of their remarkable and transformative journey into the world of agriculture. As the seasons rhythmically passed, one after another, their initially small experimental garden plots gradually grew slightly larger in size, and concurrently, their collective understanding of the vital soil itself significantly deepened. Learning to recognize and interpret its varied textures, its different colors, and its capacity to support plant life. Through continued observation and perhaps some accidental discoveries, they eventually found that incorporating well-decayed leaves from the forest floor or the nutrient-rich manure from local animals into their garden soil seemed to visibly enrich it, consistently resulting in healthier, more robust plants and consequently more abundant harvests from their dedicated cultivation efforts. The ancient, familiar rhythm of the changing seasons became even more critically important to their new way of life, as they painstakingly learned optimal, most auspicious times for planting different types of seeds, carefully timing their efforts to coincide with the arrival of life-giving rains and periods of favorable, growth-promoting temperatures. To aid their agricultural endeavors, they began to fashion simple yet effective tools from readily available materials like wood and stone. Sturdy, pointed digging sticks were crafted to efficiently break up compacted soil, and smooth flat stones were selected and used to painstakingly grind the harvested grains from their cultivated patches into usable flour. The vital task of protecting their precious, growing food source from various threats gradually became more sophisticated over time. For instance, they learned to build rudimentary but effective low fences constructed of intricately woven branches or strategically placed prickly, thorny bushes around the perimeter of their vulnerable garden plots to deter animals